everyone, Mori here again for another installment of the Book of Sorrows series. Each week we are doing a different section on the Book of Sorrows. This week we're focusing on Act 4 of our 10-part series. Each week we are meeting Wednesdays at 3:30 p.m. CST on the Dames of Destiny Twitch to work our way through the book, have some great discussion. So if you want to catch up on previous acts, take a look at some of the past videos on the Dames of Destiny YouTube page or our Twitch highlights. So make sure you grab your Titans and have your grimoire books open. So we're going to start this week out with a bit of a refresher. Why are we calling the segments of these series acts instead of parts or sections or segments? Well, this book is a bit fantastical. It's better understood as a fictional narrative than a straightforward timeline of events. It's more of a historical novel than a history textbook. There are symbols, references, and poetry that really make the Book of Sorrows worth reading instead of just collecting. I view the set of grimoire cards as more of a Shakespearean play and less of a novel. There's a lot of these cards, these cards can tell us, but there's certainly a whole lot of assumptions and educated guesses that we need to make. Last time we were here, we had a whirlwind tour of the transformation of our three sisters, Arash, Sathana, and Jiro, now called Arix, Savathun, and Zivu. So why did they choose to change their very nature? Well, remember their main goal is to kill the traitor Tox and take their father's kingdom back. Now, they've driven Tox off their planet, began a huge campaign of conquest, and then the sisters ascended into orbit to fulfill their oath. And this is where they encountered the Traveler. We had a good discussion about gender last week, so make sure to check it out on our YouTube page. This week we're covering parts 15 through 20 in the Book of Sorrows. We're going to talk a little bit about the minions of the sisters. Not the funny yellow minions, but these are the dark servants that we're chatting about. For the last few weeks we've been referring to these minions as Proto-Hive, but now they have really turned into the Hive that we recognize today. So what's a Hive's life cycle? What goes on in sort of the world of the Hive? Well, a mother wizard gets fertility from a mate or from herself. This means that wizards can evolve to become asexual, meaning they can reproduce without any other beings. Given the insect styling that Bungie has placed on the Hive, from wizards come the spawn. Now, what we can think about this is they're more like larvae. So you think insects, you think of the squishy things you walk on when you're moving through. That's the larva. When you go through the dreadnought for the first time and you see the little worms, think of that as the baby hive. They hatch in large bunches of eggs and they continue to grow. But how do they transform from worms to what we shoot at? Well, my theory is that since the Hive worship death, they can cocoon themselves into coffins or tombs, and then once their transformation is done, they move on to the next level in the hierarchy of being. So if you think of caterpillars, put themselves into a cocoon, and then they become a moth or a butterfly after that transformation. So what happens next? So from the spawn come the thrall. These are the foot soldiers of the Hive, the lowest on the totem pole. These thrall fight for survival against themselves, against enemies, against the elements. And from the survivors of the thrall come the acolytes who contend. Now, the phrase to contend is a continuation of what the thrall had to do. They had to fight against themselves and the elements. And in a sense, it's sort of a survival of the fittest to see who moves on to the next level, who is worthy of moving on. Now, when a thrall becomes an acolyte, they are given a worm. And if you guys can think back to when we talked about our three sisters, they encountered these worms that were like gods. So the worms that are given to the acolytes are sort of spirits or sections of gods that are inside of them. And these worms probably give them a higher level of thinking. So think of how, thralls are very melee-based combat, whereas acolytes can use guns, they can use melee, they have better AI, they have better tactical awareness, that sort of thing. So, survival of the fittest here, right? We gotta fight it out. So once the thrall, if they contend well, if their worm is fed, and from a well-being worm come the knights, the wizards, and the princes. Now we know from the sisters, and we'll talk about this more next week in depth, that feeding worms is done through killing and the worshipping of death. So the more that an acolyte kills, either of an enemy or of their fellow hive, the more powerful they become. It's not clear when the threshold is met for an acolyte to become a knight or a wizard. But I would venture to guess that they become, when they do this transformation, they have to undergo a similar process as they did to become an acolyte. They would have to go into the tomb, they would have, a period of time they would have to stay there, and then fundamentally transform themselves. Once they become knights and wizards, the process begins again with the creation of spawn. So given this cycle, we know that Hive would grow exponentially. The cards prove that this is true, because when you look into the Book of Sorrows and then the Hive lore in and of itself in Destiny 1, they carved out whole moons to breed in, to raise their army, to prepare for the next battle against the Travelers' forces. And you can tell we're in the Hellmouth. They're doing this to our moon. They're creating those cedar ships that they sent to Earth to start carving out Earth to be another nest, essentially. So what were our sisters doing while the Hive were transforming, breeding, growing stronger? Well, they were getting a little bit frustrated at the resistance of the Traveler and the civilization that she tries to help. There's a schism between the sisters. One of them gets killed, they come back, it's very unclear how, and then next week it even gets weirder when they kill each other repeatedly for 20 millennia, and it gets weird. We'll talk about that next week, so make sure you're here. This week, however, the Traveler is handed a defeat, and the sisters begin their intergalactic conquest. So our card tonight is part 19, Crusaders. It is worth 5 grimoire points, and I very much hope that you go back and read the cards surrounding this, because it gives a lot. So, it is done. Earl and Yule feed on the Leviathan's carcass. Xivu Arath has made a temple of Chroma Admiral's impaled corpse. Below us, Savathun poisons the Ammonite home seat black. Their screams flavor the void. The Traveler has fled. Do you understand, Arx? Do you thrill at the secret, Savathun? Do you relish the edge of this truth, Xivu? Do you see the beautiful shape? The Ammonite occupied a piece of reality. They rented their existence on fraudulent terms, making themselves happy and fat, fencing themselves in soft lies and sweet apocrypha, saying we are peaceful and good, we harm nothing. Their golden age was a cancer. They did nothing to advance the cause of life. They burnt up time and matter and thought in this pursuit of safety, insulating themselves from death, making a regressive pocket of useless stability. They could have helped whittle the universe towards its perfect final form. And your people, suffering in the deep, you became more worthy of existence than the Ammonite. You have proven it. Look around the sky. Behold the great divide, the battle lines of the cosmic war. We are the worm, your god, but we are not the deep itself. We only move within it. You shall too. You shall venerate and study it and haunt it in its passage. Will you lift your thoughts to the millennia, Arx? Will you bend your will to the liberation of the universe and join us in the war against the sky? We need champions, crusaders. Help us save the universe. Help us exterminate that which would destroy all hope. You are oath-bound to this task by the covenant of the worm, and you are oath-bound to kill Tox, wherever she's hidden herself. So rip Traveler. Seriously, handed its own defeat by these crazy sisters here. Now, there's a few interesting parts in this passage. They say, we are the worm, your god. So there's 5 worms, but they act as a single being. They also say, but we are not the deep itself. The deep itself is capitalized, meaning that the... What? Rip Destiny. We'll just do the rest in orbit. So the deep itself is capitalized, symbolizing that it is its own separate being, and that it's put above the worms. So they're supposed to venerate and study it. And I think this might be part of the symbiotic relationship between the sisters and the worms. So the sisters are going to be studying whatever this deep is, whatever the powers the deep holds, and then the worms are going to gain wisdom from this. But I think this wisdom might be power to subvert the deep so they can be in charge. So what do you guys think are the consequences of the sisters' reliance on these worms? Now that their power and armies have grown, what are they going to do next? What do you guys think? We're going to dive more into this next week, so make sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everybody!